Have you ever felt like you start the day with intention, but end it without even remembering where your time went? The truth is harsh. You're letting life get stolen from you. Every notification, every distraction, rips away minutes, energy, purpose. And you don't even notice it happening. But today that can change, because what you're about to discover can give you back the control you didn't even realize you'd lost. We live surrounded by noise, trapped in a world that competes for our attention every single second. And in the middle of all that chaos, there you are, trying to move forward, trying to focus, trying to build something that actually means something. But it's not easy, is it? Because staying focused today isn't just a task, it's an act of resistance. In this video, you're going to discover the Stoic keys to reclaim your focus, to work with intention, discipline, and inner strength. Keys that served men who faced wars, devastating losses, and adversity. So my friend, today you put an end to that scattered mind that keeps you from achieving what you set out to do. Stay with me, because this is where your battle for focus begins. And trust me, it's worth it. Before we dive into the keys, tell me, what's the exact moment in your day when your focus starts to break? Is it when you check your phone for the first time? When someone interrupts you? Really think about it. Identifying that moment could change everything. If this video is speaking directly to you, subscribe and stick around. We're not here for quick motivation. We're here to reclaim the mind you've been losing piece by piece. And leave me this phrase in the comments so I know it's you. Today I focus and work harder than ever. Now let's get started. Key number 1, choose your 3 priorities. My friend, answer me this with total honesty. What are your 3 real priorities for today? Not what sounds nice to say. Not what you wrote on your New Year's resolution list. Your real priorities, the ones guiding every decision you've made since you got up. Are they clear? Because if it takes you more than 3 seconds to answer, we've already got a problem. And you're not the only one. Look around you. Most people live like a ship drifting at sea. Seneca said it 2,000 years ago, with brutal clarity. For the person who doesn't know which port they're sailing to, no wind is favorable. Picture your day yesterday as that ship. You replied to messages that could have waited. You jumped from task to task without finishing a single one. You helped half the world with their problems, while yours just sat there, waiting. And at the end of the day, exhausted, you wondered why you didn't make progress on anything that actually mattered. It wasn't bad luck. You just didn't choose your port. Now imagine Epictetus waking up in your life today. He opens his eyes and the first thing he sees is notifications. 37 unread messages, a flooded inbox, exploding WhatsApp groups, social media screaming for attention, your boss needing something urgent, your family needing help, friends waiting for replies. You know what a Stoic would do in the middle of all that chaos? He wouldn't ask, "What do I have to do today?" He'd ask, "What does my soul need today?" And that's the difference between surviving the day and taking your life back. Naming what matters before the world decides for you. Because that's what happens when you don't choose your priorities. It's not that you don't have any. It's that others choose them for you. Your boss decides. Social media decides. Other people's urgent problems decide. And you end up spending your energy, your time, your attention on things you won't even remember by the end of the week. You've been busy, sure. But busy doesn't mean productive. Busy doesn't mean you're building something. Busy can just be noise disguised as work. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire at war. He had generals waiting on orders, senators plotting, collapsing borders, plagues devastating cities. And still, he found time to write in his meditations, to reflect on his day, to ask himself if he was living in line with his principles. Do you think he had extra time lying around? No, my friend, he chose where to spend it. Writing wasn't something he did if he had a spare moment. It was a priority. And priorities don't wait for you to have time. Priorities create time. Now here's where it gets interesting. Modern psychology has spent decades confirming what Seneca already knew. Locke and Latham, 2 researchers who studied human performance for years, discovered something simple but powerful. When goals are clear and specific, behavior organizes itself. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more discipline, you need clarity. When you know exactly which port you're sailing to, every decision becomes easier. Every interruption becomes something you can assess in 2 seconds. Does this bring me closer or pull me away? Cal Newport, the expert who popularized the concept of deep work, often repeats something that could have easily come from a Stoic in the 2nd century. A few things, well chosen, done with your full attention. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. And the funny thing is, most people confuse being busy with making progress. They open 50 tabs, reply to 100 messages, attend 10 meetings, and at the end of the day feel like they didn't do anything meaningful. Because they didn't. They did the urgent stuff, not the important stuff. Let me paint 2 scenarios for you. First day, you wake up, grab your phone before even getting out of bed, reply to a few work messages, then you go down to have breakfast while scrolling through Instagram. You get to your computer, and before starting your important project, you check your email. There's something that's not urgent, but you handle it anyway. A coworker asks for help with something they could do themselves. You help them. Lunchtime comes, and your project is still where it was this morning. You push on through the afternoon. More interruptions, more little things draining your energy. Night comes and you're exhausted. You've been busy all day, but your project, the one you said was the most important, hasn't moved an inch. You said yes to everything except your priorities. Second day, you wake up with 3 priorities written on a card next to your computer. 3 things that today must move forward, no matter what. Every time an interruption comes in, you look at the card and ask, does this fit with one of my 3 priorities? Or is it just noise disguised as urgency? Your coworker asks for help. You look at the card. It doesn't fit. You tell them later. The WhatsApp group is going crazy. You look at the card. Doesn't fit. You mute it. Email tempts you. You look at the card. It can wait until the afternoon. By the end of the day, you've done fewer things, but the important ones are done. And the feeling isn't one of empty exhaustion. It's real progress. There was a time when I also confused being busy with making progress. I said my priority was the channel, that my priority was improving, that my priority was creating content that mattered. But if you looked at my day, my real priority was notifications. Until one day I did something very simple but very revealing. I wrote down 3 things on a sticky note and made myself spend at least 1 hour on each before ending the day. And that's when I realized the problem wasn't a lack of time. It was a lack of clarity and a lack of honesty with myself. So how do you apply this without turning it into just another technique you drop after a week? Start by choosing 3 priorities every morning. Not 10, not 5. 3, and keep those 3 visible: a piece of paper, a wallpaper on your phone, a note on your desk. Something you see every time you're about to get distracted. Every time something new shows up, ask yourself, does this serve one of my 3 priorities, or is it just keeping me busy? Do quick check-ins halfway through your day. Pause for a second and ask yourself, where did my morning go? Toward my priorities, or toward what others threw on my plate? Epictetus was direct. First tell me who you want to be, then act accordingly. You say you want to be disciplined, but not a single decision in your day reflects that you say you want to be focused, but you live reacting to every stimulus. You say you want to build something big, but you spend your energy on things you won't even remember tomorrow. That disconnect between what you say you want and how you live your day, that's what's killing you inside. As long as you don't choose your priorities, the world will choose them for you, and I promise you, the world doesn't care about your peace of mind or your dreams. Marcus Aurelius didn't have extra time, but he chose how to spend it. That's the difference between living on autopilot and reclaiming your attention, deciding today what deserves your 3 best hours. Not tomorrow, not when you have more time. Today, right now. Because every day without clarity is a day you lose without realizing it, and you've already lost enough. Key number 2, Cut everything that steals your attention. Imagine Marcus Aurelius waking up in your life today. He opens his eyes and the first thing he sees is you working 10 tabs open in your browser, your phone buzzing every 2 minutes, a video playing in the background because silence makes you uncomfortable, notifications popping up in the corner of your screen, and you, in the middle of all that noise, telling yourself you're being productive. You know what a Stoic would say if they saw that? That your mind stopped being a temple and turned into a waiting room full of screens fighting for your attention. The Stoics were crystal clear on something. Life is measured by how you use your attention, not by how many hours you work, not by how many tasks you cross off a list, by how you choose to use that limited resource that is your ability to focus. And here comes the uncomfortable truth. It's not enough to have priorities if your environment is designed to steal them from you. You can know exactly what's important, but if something interrupts you every 2 minutes, you'll never get there. Let me paint you a scene I'm sure you recognize. You're trying to focus on something important, a project, a paper, something that demands your best self. But you've got WhatsApp web open because you don't want to miss anything. Your email has notifications on because you need to reply quickly. Slack or Teams is open because your team might need you. And every time something pings, you just glance at it for a second, just a second. But that second turns into 2 minutes. Those 2 minutes lead to checking other things. And when you finally return to what matters, your head isn't there anymore. It's halfway between what you were doing and what you just saw. By the end of the block, you're drained. But it's not a normal kind of tired. It's that strange exhaustion that comes from being busy without moving forward, like you worked non-stop, but produced nothing. That feeling has a cause. Your mind has been running a mental marathon. Let me explain it how it really is. Trying to focus today is like running a marathon, but not a normal one. Not on a straight track, not with a number on your chest, not on a clean and clear circuit. Your marathon feels more like a race designed to sabotage you. Picture yourself at the starting line. You're ready, motivated, taking a deep breath. The gun goes off and you start running. But at the first kilometer, someone signals you to look at a screen. You have to stop for a second, you keep going. At the second kilometer, someone shoves a sign full of urgent messages in your face. You dodge it. At the third, it starts drizzling. But not rain. Notifications, vibrations, sounds, alerts. They hit your attention like tiny stones falling on your shoulders. You try to keep your pace, but every interruption breaks your stride, and they won't let you move in a straight line. The road is full of detours you didn't ask for, streets that lead nowhere. People pushing you to the side saying, just look at this for a second. Answer this quickly. Do it now. It'll only take a minute. And you keep running, but you're not flowing. You're stumbling forward. Start and stop, over and over that drains more than a real marathon. And when you finally stop, something strange happens. You're drained, sweaty, your legs shaking. But when you look back, you barely moved. You were in motion all day, yes, but without direction. And that's exactly what happens to your mind when you try to work surrounded by interruptions. It runs hard, but moves little. And if this sounds exaggerated, it's not. There's a name for it in psychology. Gloria Mark, one of the world's top researchers in attention and digital work, discovered something alarming. The average amount of time we spend on a task before switching is brutally low. And that constant switching comes at a cost. Every time you jump, even for a second, your brain doesn't return to the same level of focus. A part of your mind stays stuck in the last thing you were doing. It's like trying to fill a glass while someone's poking a hole in the bottom. It never really fills. You never give your full 100%. But here's the thing. It's not that you're weak. It's not that you lack discipline. It's that you're fighting a system designed to win. Notifications aren't accidents. The sounds, the colors, the vibrations, everything is engineered by teams of experts whose job is to grab your attention and never let it go. Nir Eyal, the author who writes about reclaiming control, says it clearly. The key isn't to run from technology, but to force it to play on your team. And yes, that sounds nice, but the Stoics figured this out 2,000 years ago. Epictetus said, "Distinguish between what depends on you and what doesn't." It doesn't depend on you that social media exists, or that urgent messages come in, or that digital noise is constant. But it does depend on you where your phone is when you're trying to focus. It does depend on you whether you check email every 5 minutes or twice a day. It does depend on you whether your environment drains you or supports you. Marcus Aurelius ruled surrounded by noise. Not digital noise, but noise all the same. People asking for urgent decisions, war reports, political betrayals, problems that couldn't wait. And even then, he found moments to be alone with his thoughts, to write, to reflect. He protected his mental space like it was sacred, not because he had time to spare, but because he knew if he didn't, his mind would be devoured by the storm outside. And this brings us to something almost no one wants to admit. Distractions don't just come from outside. You can be in a silent room, no phone, no notifications, no noise, and still feel like your mind is chaos. Worries, self-criticism, imaginary conversations with people who aren't there, future scenarios that may never happen, past moments that keep coming back. Your surroundings might be at peace, but your mind might be living through a war. Let me tell you the story of someone who lived that firsthand. I met her in a massive library, one of those that smell like wood and old books, a brilliant student, disciplined, quiet, everything perfect on the outside. She had her notes laid out, her laptop open, her coffee by her side, and nothing. No progress. She flipped through pages back and forth like her head was stuck in a broken loop. Sometimes she just sat still, staring at a fixed point on the table, her eyes lost. When I spoke to her later, she explained it in a soft voice. "I can be in silence, no distractions, no phone, but my mind won't shut up. It's like I'm trying to study with 20 voices inside. One part wants to focus. Another's thinking about what I have to do later. Another is criticizing what I did yesterday. Another is imagining everything that could go wrong. And in that internal noise, I don't move forward." And that's when it hit me. It's not just the external world. We're also our own attention thieves. The Stoics knew this. That's why Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations. Not for others, for himself. To clear his mind before the noise consumed it, to organize what he carried inside. So how do you apply all of this without turning into someone who's disconnected from the world? Very simple. Create sacred blocks of work. 1 hour. 2. However long you need for what matters. And in that block, everything that could interrupt you disappears. Not after you start, before phone away, notifications off, email closed, unneeded tabs shut down. Everything. If you wait to feel like doing it, you never will. Discipline isn't about resisting temptation. It's about designing an environment where temptation doesn't even get the chance to show up. Set boundaries with people who interrupt you too. Not with aggression, just clarity. A simple, "I can't right now, I'll help you later," is better than being available for everyone but yourself. Seneca said it bluntly, "Not everyone around you has your best interest in mind. If you don't set boundaries, they'll drain you." And pay attention to the internal noise. Before you start working, write for 5 minutes everything that's on your mind. Get it out. Not to solve it, just to release it, to make room for what matters. Decide, too, when you'll rest, when you'll disconnect, and when you'll use your phone without guilt. Because conscious rest isn't distraction. Distraction is what steals from you without asking. Every distraction you allow is a small theft you don't feel in the moment. But by the end of the day, it turns into lost hours. And the Stoics understood this clearly. Life is measured by what you're able to focus on, not by what you do, by what you choose, by what you give attention to. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much you can endure, it's about how much you're able to build. And no one builds anything while the world steals their attention piece by piece without them even realizing it. Key number 3. Do just one thing, but do it well. Epictetus didn't sugarcoat it. Don't think about everything at once. And you know this. You know you can't handle it all. But still, You live with 9 tabs open, 4 thoughts running in parallel, your phone vibrating, your mind reminding you of unfinished tasks and that constant feeling that you're not getting anywhere. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. When was the last time you did just one thing with your whole soul? No checking your phone, no thinking about what's next, no splitting yourself into pieces. When? Picture this scene. You're working on something important, or at least trying to. You've got an email open in one tab, a WhatsApp conversation waiting, a video playing in the background because silence makes you uneasy. Your laptop's full of windows, your mind's reminding you that you need to buy groceries, call someone, finish that thing from yesterday. It's impossible to do anything well like that. Marcus Aurelius would have closed everything and kept only one thing in front of him, just one. We, on the other hand, think we can do it all at once, and we lie to ourselves. Your attention is like a flashlight. When you focus it on a single spot, it lights things up clearly. You see details, depth, clarity. But when you try to widen the beam to cover everything, it gets so faint you can't see anything well. The Stoics knew this. Scattered energy means a scattered life. They weren't talking about productivity. They were talking about excellence. And excellence only comes from being fully present. Now comes what no one wants to hear. Multitasking doesn't exist, not the way you think. What you call doing several things at once is really just jumping from one to the other, so fast that you think you're doing it all. But your brain doesn't work like that. Every time you switch tasks, there's a cost. That's what's called residual attention. Part of your mind stays stuck on the last thing you're writing, but thinking about your inbox. You're checking your inbox, but thinking about the project. You're never fully in any one place, and by the end of the day, it feels like you worked a lot but moved very little. The studies by Sahakian and Moraine Zamir at Cambridge confirmed something brutal. Digital multitasking doesn't just lower your performance, it wrecks it. Your cognitive ability nosedives, your memory fragments, your focus evaporates. And on top of all that, you feel more stressed. Because your brain is built to go deep on one thing, not to skim 20 things on the surface. Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist who spent years studying attention, explains it like this. Your brain operates in ultradian cycles of about 90 minutes. That's 90 minutes where you can enter deep focus. But only if you're doing one thing. If you're switching every 5 minutes, you'll never get there. You'll never reach that state where work flows, ideas show up, and you feel like you're actually building something real. Rian Doris from the Flow Research Collective goes even further. He says multitasking blocks access to the flow state, that state where you lose track of time because you're so immersed in what you're doing that everything else fades away. That state where you do your best work, where you feel alive. You can't enter that space if you're split. Flow requires total presence, and total presence requires just one thing in front of you. Let me draw you something I know you've lived. You open your laptop with every intention of making progress on a personal project, something that really matters to you. But 5 minutes later, you're watching a random video. Then you check your email. Then you reply to a message. Then you come back to the project, but you're no longer really there. Your mind is in 3 different places at once, and in the end, you close your laptop frustrated because nothing moved forward. It's not that you're weak, it's that your attention was so fragmented it never had a chance to build anything solid. This is where Epictetus would raise an eyebrow and ask you something sharp. Do you really believe you can be everywhere and still be present anywhere? Because that's what happens when you try to do too much. You're physically present but mentally absent. You look busy but feel empty. Chris Bailey, author of Hyperfocus, sums it up perfectly. Deep focus doesn't just multiply your productivity, it brings peace of mind. Because when you do one thing well, you feel like you're making progress. And when you feel progress, your self-esteem rises. Your sense of control comes back. You stop feeling like the day is dragging you, and you start feeling like you're steering it. Marcus Aurelius handled things one at a time, never all at once. He had an empire collapsing around him, and still he didn't try to be everywhere. He made one decision. then another, one thing, then the next, because he understood that doing fewer things with excellence is better than doing too much and failing at all of it. Seneca spoke about how life escapes us through small leaks, and one of those leaks is dividing your attention into pieces so small they no longer serve any purpose. There was a day I tried to record a video, reply to messages, and brainstorm new ideas, all in the same morning, my friend. I ended up drained, frustrated, and with 0 things finished. And I realized the problem wasn't my discipline. It was that I was spreading my attention so thin it wasn't useful anymore. I was busy, but not productive, active, but not effective, moving, but not moving forward. So, how do you apply this without going nuts? Start by setting up a true block of focused work, not just mentally, physically, and environmentally. Close every tab you don't need. Turn off notifications. Put your phone in another room, not after you start. Before, because if you start with distractions within reach, you'll give in eventually. Define your master task of the day. That one thing that, if completed, makes the day worth it. Not 3 master tasks. 1. Then work in 90-minute blocks. 90 minutes of deep focus. Then take a break. Then another block if you've got the energy. But during that block, only that one task exists. Nothing else. Eliminate micro-interruptions before you begin. During is too late. If you start working and get interrupted every 10 minutes, you'll never reach depth. Depth takes time. It requires your mind to settle, to really sink into what you're doing. And that doesn't happen in 5 minutes. It happens after 20-30 minutes of not jumping around close loops. If you start something, finish it before starting something else. Don't leave 5 tasks half done. One thing, done well. Then the next. Ness Labs, a community that studies neuroproductivity, explains that context switching, that constant jumping between tasks, comes at a huge energy cost. You don't just lose time, you lose mental energy. Your brain tires out faster, because every time you switch, it has to reload context. Remember where you were, what you were doing, what you were about to say, and that burns through resources you could have used to move forward. When you do one single thing with your whole soul, you get your power back. When you scatter your mind, you scatter yourself. The Stoics never talked about productivity. They talked about excellence, and excellence is only born from total focus, not from trying to be everywhere, not from pretending you can handle it all, from choosing one thing and giving it everything you've got. Because at the end of the day, what matters isn't how many things you touched, it's how many you finished well, how many you did with full presence, how many truly deserved your full attention. And that only happens when you stop splitting yourself and start showing up fully for just one thing. That's where your best work lives. That's where you reclaim your life. Sometimes we don't realize it, but living with divided attention takes more life from us than it gives. And that's hard to admit, because we all fall into it. But before we move on, I want to ask you something you might have never stopped to think about. When was the last time you were truly present in just one thing? No escaping, no phone, no splitting yourself. If you feel like sharing it, drop it in the comments. It helps. And if you just want to leave one sentence, make it this one. Today I reclaim my attention. Key number 4, build a day that pushes you forward, not one that holds you back. Tell me the truth. Is your day designed to help you or to drain you? Because a lot of people live through days they didn't choose, reactive days, chaotic days, days full of other people's urgencies, days that start with grabbing the phone in bed and end without even remembering where the hours went. Epictetus would have called that living like a slave to your environment. And honestly, he'd be right. Because if you don't design your day, someone else will. Your boss, your notifications, your emergencies. Anyone but you. Picture Marcus Aurelius waking up before sunrise. He didn't rush to check messages. He didn't dive into chaos. He had a ritual, mentally preparing for the battle of the day. He knew ruling an empire at war required clarity. It required intention. It required designing his day instead of reacting to it. And you have a battle too. Yours begins the moment you open your eyes and let your phone hijack your attention, before your mind is even ready. Your day is a construction. Each block is an hour. Each hour is a choice. If you don't design it, someone else will. The Stoics built their days with intention. We, more often than not, build ours with urgency. And then we wonder why we end the day exhausted, without having moved forward on what truly matters. It's not bad luck. It's a lack of architecture. Thomas Frank, a creator who spent years talking about productivity without falling into the trap of empty motivation, once said his life changed the moment he stopped improvising his days. He said something Seneca could have written himself. If I design my day, I have freedom. If I let the day design me, I lose. Because freedom isn't doing whatever you want whenever you want. Freedom is having a structure that protects what matters from getting eaten up by noise. Here comes the uncomfortable part. Most people hate the word routine. They associate it with boredom, with rigidity, with monotony. But the Stoics saw routine differently. They saw it as protection, as a wall against chaos, as a way to ensure that what matters gets space in your day without having to fight for it every time. Routine isn't rigidity, it's liberation. Because when you create blocks for deep work, when you include real breaks, when you have a start-of-day ritual and a closing ritual, you stop wasting energy deciding what to do every 2 hours. You already decided. Now, you just execute. Dan Ariely, a leading researcher in human behavior, discovered something the Stoics already sensed. The first hours of the day carry the most mental energy. Your brain is fresh. Your willpower is strong. Your ability to focus is at its peak. And most people waste those hours on email, messages, social media, and other people's fires. By noon, they're drained, and then they try to do the important stuff when nothing's left in the tank. That's building your day backwards. Daniel Pink, author of When, explains that your performance runs in rhythms. You're not equally productive at 9 a.m. and 4 p.m., but people keep treating all hours like they're the same. They load their schedule without thinking about when they're best suited for what. The Stoics didn't do that. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations when his mind was clear. Seneca reviewed his day at night, when he could reflect without pressure. Two different moments, one shared purpose, to rule their time instead of being ruled by it. Let me show you two scenarios. First day, you open your phone in bed, check your messages, see something stressful. You're already in emergency mode before your feet hit the floor. You eat breakfast scrolling through the news. You get to work and start answering emails. Then someone asks for something. Then another urgent thing pops up. Then you knock out a bunch of small tasks. By midday, your energy is gone. You try to do something meaningful in the afternoon, but your brain is fried. You end the day feeling like you worked a lot but got nowhere. It's not that you're lazy. It's that your day was designed to drain you, not to push you. Second day, you get up without touching your phone. You have a starting ritual. It can be simple. Coffee, 5 minutes of silence. One question: what do I want to create today? You review your 3 priorities. Then you dive into your first deep work block. 90 minutes with no interruptions, no emails, no messages. Nothing but your top priority. You take a real break, not checking social media, a real pause. Then another block, lighter, less intense, tasks that require less energy. At the end of the day, you have a closing ritual. You shut down mental tabs. You write down what worked and what didn't. You unplug. And when you unplug, you actually unplug. You're not still thinking about work at midnight. You end the day tired, but with that feeling of real. So, how do you build a day that pushes you forward? Start by creating blocks of true focus, not scattered hours. Blocks, with clear beginnings and endings, where every part of you is fully engaged in one thing. Create a start ritual, something that tells your brain, now the important work begins. It can be as simple as closing all tabs, setting a 90-minute timer, taking 3 deep breaths, and starting. Create an end ritual too, something to shut the day down, something that helps you let go. It can be writing 3 lines about what you did. It can be a walk. Whatever it is, Let it mark a boundary between work and rest. Cut down on repetitive decisions. Don't waste energy every morning deciding what to eat, what to wear, or when to work. Decide once. Automate it. James Clear puts it well. Habits are systems, and systems free up space to think about what really matters. Leave breathing room in your day. Don't cram everything in. If every minute is packed, when one thing falls apart, the whole day collapses. Define your minimum viable day. Those days when everything goes wrong, when life throws you something unexpected. What's the minimum you can do to stop the day from being a total waste? Define that. And when everything else falls apart, do at least that. Emma Seppala, a researcher at Stanford, talks about balance without anxiety, about productivity that doesn't destroy you. And she's right. Because a well-designed day isn't one where you work 16 hours nonstop. It's a day where you do what matters, rest deeply, and finish with the feeling that you moved forward, without burning out. The Stoics weren't trying to be machines, they were trying to live well. And living well takes structure that holds you up, not one that crushes you. The perfect day doesn't exist, but a designed day does. And a designed day brings you closer to your ideal life. The Stoics didn't improvise their virtue. They worked on it every morning and reviewed it every night. Do the same with your attention. Design your day before the day designs you. Because in the end, it's not about how much you work, it's about how you work. And whether your day pushes you toward what matters or keeps you stuck in the noise of what's urgent. Key number 5, train your mind to return to the present. Marcus Aurelius said the mind must return to itself again and again, like reining in a runaway horse, and you know it. Your mind doesn't sit still for a second. You start a task and your thoughts jump to what happened yesterday, to what could happen tomorrow, to an imaginary conversation that's never going to happen. You're not here. And if you're not here, you can't focus. It's impossible. Picture yourself working. You're writing something important. Suddenly you remember a bill you have to pay. Then you think about an uncomfortable conversation you've been avoiding. Then you wonder what you'll have for dinner. Then you question whether what you're writing even makes sense. Not even 30 seconds have passed and your mind has jumped 5 times. Epictetus would call this living in your head, not in your life. Because your body is sitting at the computer, but your mind is everywhere except where it needs to be. The mind is like an untrained puppy. If you let it loose, it runs, it barks, it chases anything, and then you're surprised you can't concentrate. It's not that you're weak, it's that you've never trained your mind to stay still. The Stoics knew this, that's why they sat, that's why they breathed, that's why they wrote. That's why they returned to the moment again and again, because they understood something we've forgotten. If you don't train your mind trains you, and it will train you to scatter, to flee, to jump from thought to thought without ever going deep. Here's the uncomfortable truth. An untrained mind lives in the past and the future. It rehashes what already happened. It anticipates what could happen. But it never stays where action actually takes place. And the only place where you can act is the present. You can't change yesterday. You can't control tomorrow. You can only do something here, now, in this moment. Seneca said it with brutal clarity. The present is the only time we truly possess. The past no longer exists. The future hasn't arrived, and yet we live as if the present matters the least. Justin Welsh, a creator who built his business from scratch, shared how he used to live inside a mental whirlwind, jumping from thought to thought, worried about everything, trying to control things he couldn't control. Until one day he realized something simple but devastating. If he couldn't control his mind, he couldn't control his life. His transformation began with something basic, coming back to the present again and again. Not because it was easy, because it was necessary. And it's true. We should treat our attention as cognitive training. It's not magic. It's not mystical meditation. It's practice, like training a muscle. Your mind wanders. You bring it back. It wanders again. You bring it back again. And every time you do that, you get stronger, more capable of being where you are. more in charge of your attention. Because it's true, out attention gets depleted, like a muscle that's been overused. But it can also be strengthened, and the way to do that is to practice coming back to the present, again and again. My friend, attention is the foundation of everything. Without attention, there is no emotional intelligence, no performance, no conscious life, only reaction. And most people live on autopilot, reacting to whatever shows up, never really being there. Let me describe something I know you've experienced. You're with someone, they're talking to you, but your mind is on the email you haven't answered on tomorrow's meeting, on what you said yesterday and how it sounded. You're physically there, but mentally gone. Later, you sit down to eat. You put food in your mouth, but your mind is going over work problems, replaying past conversations, anticipating future conflicts. Your body is eating, but your mind is at war. You're doing something simple, brushing your teeth, walking down the street, cooking, but your head is a storm. 100 thoughts at once, none useful, none getting you anywhere, just noise. Here's where Marcus Aurelius would say something direct. Come back, again and again. It doesn't matter how many times you drift off, come back, because every time you return, you grow stronger. Every time you notice you've gone and choose to return, you train your ability to focus. It's not failing and recovering. It's training and strengthening. My friend, being here is the foundation of mental performance. You can't perform at your best if your mind is split across 10 places. You can't make good decisions if you're thinking about something else. You can't create something valuable if your attention is fragmented. And coming back to the present isn't something you do once. It's something you do 100 times a day, 1,000, every time you catch yourself drifting. So how do you train your mind to return to the present without turning into a monk living on a mountain? Start simple. Conscious breathing before a work block. 3 deep breaths. That's it. But conscious ones. Feel the air going in. Feel it going out. Your mind will wander. It always does. But when you notice it's gone, bring it back to the breath. No judgment. No frustration. Just bring it back. That's the training. Throughout the day, take mini pauses to reset your mind. 1 minute, 30 seconds, whatever you can, but stop. Breathe. Return. Because if you work 4 straight hours without ever coming back to the present, you're working on autopilot. And autopilot is terrible for deep work. Do one thing fully. Walk without your phone, eat without screens, shower without thinking about work. It sounds silly, but most people no longer know how to do anything without dividing their attention. And that constant division, it's killing you inside. Right for 2 minutes to dump mental noise. Before starting something important, open a note or a blank page and write down everything that's distracting you. The worries, the to-dos, the conversations on loop in your head. Get it out. Put it down. Not to solve it right there, just to stop it from spinning while you're trying to focus. Epictetus taught that we are not what distracts us. We are what we choose to give our attention to. And that choice takes practice. It takes returning. It takes training. There's an old story where a student tells his teacher, "My mind never stays still." The teacher takes a glass of cloudy water and sets it on the table. "Watch," he says. "The dirt settles when the water stops moving." That's what the present is to the Stoics. Clear water. When you stop moving mentally, stop jumping from thought to thought, things settle. Clarity returns. And with clarity comes focus. The present isn't some mystical place, it's a practice. Every time you return, you grow stronger. Every time you get lost and come back, you become more in control of yourself. That's Stoicism in action. Not abstract philosophy, concrete practice. Come back, again and again, until your mind stops being a runaway horse and starts becoming a tool you can guide. Because in the end, focus isn't something you either have or don't have, it's something you train. And the training starts here, now, in this moment, by returning to the present one more time. Key number 6, rest before you break. Seneca said that even the sharpest swords will break if they're not cared for. And you've been living for years as if you can't break, as if getting tired is a flaw, as if resting is for the weak. But let me tell you something no one wants to admit. Lack of rest is stealing more focus from you than any distraction, more than your phone, more than notifications, more than anything external. Because when you're exhausted, your mind doesn't work. And a mind that doesn't work can't focus on anything. It's happened to you. You're working, but your mind is foggy. You read the same sentence 3 times and it still doesn't register. You take 3 times longer to do something that usually takes 10 minutes. You get frustrated. You feel slow, clumsy. And instead of resting, you push harder. You punish yourself for not performing. But Marcus Aurelius would never confuse exhaustion with a lack of discipline. He knew that a tired emperor makes bad decisions. He knew mental clarity requires energy, and energy requires rest. The mind is like a battery. You want to use it like it's infinite, but it's not. When it drops below 20%, everything slows down, gets blurry, loses precision. Your decisions get worse. Your creativity disappears. Your focus vanishes. And the Stoics knew this. You can't be virtuous if you're drained. You can't live with excellence if your mind is running on fumes. You can't focus when your brain is begging for a break. You never give it. There's an anecdote told by some historians. They say that when Marcus Aurelius was worn out, he'd step away for a few minutes to breathe and reflect before returning to the demands of ruling, not out of weakness. Because he knew that a tired emperor makes bad calls, calls that could cost him battles, lives, an empire. And you're doing the same, making decisions while tired, about your life, your work, your relationships. And then you wonder why things aren't working out. Anne-Laure Lecomte, the creator of Nest Labs, shared how she used to rest very little because she thought productivity meant working more. More hours, more effort, more sacrifice, until she burned out. No creativity, no energy, no drive. And that's when she realized something the Stoics already knew. Rest isn't a luxury, it's part of focus. Because when she finally rested, her creativity came back. Her clarity returned. Her ability to do deep work returned. Rest didn't pull her away from her goals. It brought her closer to them. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Preventive rest is more powerful than recovery rest. It's better to rest before you break than to try fixing yourself after. But most people do the opposite. They work until they collapse, until their body forces them to stop, until they can't take any more. And then they need weeks to recover. Weeks they could have avoided with strategic pauses, with conscious rest, by treating their energy as the most valuable resource they have, because it is. Matthew Walker, one of the world's top sleep researchers, doesn't sugarcoat it. If you sleep less than 7 hours, your cognitive performance plummets, your memory slips, your decision-making gets worse, your creativity vanishes, your immune system weakens. And still, some people brag about sleeping 5 hours like it's a badge of honor, as if destroying your brain is something to be proud of. It's not. It's foolish. But rest isn't just sleep. Did you know there's something called NSDR, non-sleep deep rest? Techniques that reset your nervous system without having to sleep. Deep breathing, short meditations, progressive muscle relaxation. 10 minutes of that can give you more clarity than an hour of fake rest. Because most people don't actually rest. They scroll, watch videos, jump from one stimulus to another, and they call that a break. But it's not, it's saturation disguised as pause. And here's something fascinating. Gentle movement restores mental energy. I'm not talking about running a marathon. I'm talking about walking, stretching, moving a little. Because when your body moves, your mind resets. Sit for 8 hours straight and your brain shuts down. Your energy stagnates. Your ability to focus collapses. And then you wonder why you can't concentrate. The Drogheim Group study followed workers for months and discovered something that sounds counterintuitive. The most productive people weren't the ones who worked the most hours. They were the ones who worked in blocks of 52 minutes followed by 17 minutes of rest. Not fake rest, real rest. Standing up, walking, disconnecting. And when they came back, their performance was better than those who worked 2 hours straight without a break. Because the brain doesn't function like a machine, It works in cycles, and if you ignore those cycles, you pay the price. Let me describe something you'll recognize, my friend. You're working tired. You know you should stop, but you feel guilty for resting, as if pausing means giving up. So you keep going, push harder, demand more from yourself, and what you produce is mediocre, full of errors, lacking clarity. Then you have to redo it, and the time you thought you were saving by not resting, you lose fixing the mistakes. Another scenario. It's 10 p.m. You've been overloaded all day and you expect your brain to perform like it's still morning. But it can't. Your brain is fried. And still, you get mad at yourself. As if it's your fault. It's not. You're just ignoring how your mind works. Epictetus would say you can't rule yourself if you can't even keep your mind awake. And he's right. Because to govern your life, you need clarity. You need energy. You need to make conscious decisions. And you can't do any of that if you're operating at 20%. So how do you apply this without feeling like you're being lazy? Start by taking real breaks, not checking your phone. Get up, breathe, walk for a minute, look out the window. Do something that signals to your brain. Now you can let go. Try NSDR, 10 minutes of deep breathing, of conscious relaxation, of resetting your nervous system. Not because you're weak, because you're smart, because you understand your brain needs moments of stillness to process, consolidate, recharge. Catch the warning signs of burnout before they crush you. When you read the same thing 3 times and it won't stick. When you take twice as long to do something simple. When you're irritable for no reason. Those are signals, don't ignore them. Sleep well, 7 to 9 hours, non-negotiable, and unplug from work mentally, not just physically, mentally. If you go to bed thinking about work, you're not resting. If you wake up checking emails, you're not resting. If you fill your breaks with digital noise, you're not resting. The opposite of rest isn't productivity, it's deterioration. And deterioration is slow. You don't notice it in a day. You notice it after months. When your creativity is gone, when your motivation is dried up, when you don't feel anything anymore. And by then, it's too late. Because recovering from burnout takes months, years, and it could have been avoided with conscious pauses, with preventive rest by protecting your energy before it runs out completely. Rest doesn't take you away from your goals. It brings you closer. Because clarity, discipline, and focus don't come from brute force. They come from a cared-for mind. The Stoics knew this. That's why they protected their energy like it was treasure. Because it was. And so is yours. Stop treating it like it's infinite. Because it's not. And when it runs out, everything else crashes with it. Let me say this to you as a friend. You can't keep pushing with a brain that's been begging for a break. Before we move on, I want to ask you something very simple, but very real. When was the last time you truly rested? No screens, no noise, no guilt. If you want to share it below, it might help someone going through the same thing. And if you just want to leave one short sentence, write this: today I give myself a real break. Key number 7. Your environment should push you forward. Seneca said that there's no favorable wind for the one who doesn't know where they're going, but he might have added something more uncomfortable. There's no favorable wind for the one who lives surrounded by things that push them in the opposite direction. And you know this. Your environment affects you more than you want to admit. Far more. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if your surroundings are designed to distract you, you will lose. Not because you're weak, but because you're fighting an impossible battle. Imagine you want to eat healthy. You're full of motivation, full of discipline, but you open your kitchen and all you find are pastries, soda, processed bread, and chocolate. How long before you give in? A day? Maybe 2 if you're lucky. It's not a lack of willpower, it's your environment. Because your environment defines the path of least resistance. And no matter how stoic we try to be, humans tend to follow that path most of the time. The same thing happens with your focus. Your desk, your phone, your notifications, even the people around you. They either lift you up or drag you down. There's no middle ground. Your environment is like a current. If it flows in the right direction, you move forward almost effortlessly. If it flows against you, it wears you down, even when you're doing everything right. The Stoics knew this. That's why they were intentional about where they spent their time, how they organized their space, and who they surrounded themselves with. Because they understood something most people ignore. Willpower is secondary when your environment is aligned. But if your environment works against you, no amount of discipline will save you. Picture Epictetus in his small school in Nicopolis. No luxuries, no comfort. But something better. An environment designed for clarity. Few things, few distractions. A space where the mind could work without noise. That wasn't a coincidence. It was deliberate. Marcus Aurelius would retreat to write in quiet places, even during military campaigns, even in the middle of chaos, pressure, and war, because he knew that if he didn't protect his environment, his mind would collapse. Seneca lived simply by choice, not out of need, because he knew that what surrounds you shapes how you think, and if your environment is full of noise, your mind will be full of noise. Matt D'Avella, a creator who spent years talking about minimalism and intentional living, shared something revealing. He said he didn't improve his discipline through motivation, but through design. He removed the things that tempted him and added what supported him. His environment started making decisions for him. He didn't have to fight temptation, he just eliminated it. And once temptation was gone, discipline showed up naturally, because discipline isn't about holding on heroically, it's about designing your life so that the right thing is the easiest thing to do. B.J. Fogg, an expert in behavioral design, puts it like this: your environment influences your behavior more than your motivation, much more. You can be highly motivated to stay focused, but if your phone vibrates every 5 minutes, you'll lose. You might want to do deep work, but if your desk is covered in cables, papers, mugs, and clutter, your mind will reflect that chaos. Wendy Wood, a habits researcher, goes further. She says environment defines 80% of automatic behavior, 80%. That's not a detail, that's almost everything. And still, most people try to change through motivation instead of changing their environment. Let me describe something you'll recognize. You're trying to focus on something important, but your desk is a mess. Papers you haven't touched in weeks, tangled cords, empty cups, random objects you don't even remember putting there. Your phone is right next to you. Buzzing every few minutes, the TV is on in the background because you like some noise, and you wonder why you can't concentrate. It's not that you're incapable, it's that your environment is shouting at you from every angle. Your brain is trying to filter 100 stimuli at once, and when your brain is filtering, it's not focusing. Another scenario: you work in your living room. Your family comes in and out. They ask questions, they ask for help. Not because they're inconsiderate, but because you're always available. You've never drawn a boundary. You've never designed a space that says clearly, this is where I don't get interrupted. And then you get frustrated because you're not progressing. But the problem isn't your discipline. It's that your environment is designed to interrupt you. And an environment designed to interrupt you will always win. Anne-Laure Lecunff from Ness Labs talks about cognitive environment. Not just the physical space, but the digital one too. How many tabs you have open, how many apps you've installed, how many notifications you allow. All of that is part of your environment, and all of that affects your ability to focus. Simplifying your cognitive environment boosts your focus massively, because every element you remove is one less decision your brain has to make, one less temptation, one less point of friction. I discovered the power of environment the day I deleted every app from my phone except the essentials. It felt almost ridiculous. With no temptations, suddenly I was way more disciplined. My motivation hadn't changed. My willpower hadn't changed. My environment had. And when my environment changed, my behavior changed on its own. Because I no longer had to fight. There was nothing to fight against. Seneca would ask you something uncomfortable. What are you allowing to live around you that you don't want to live inside you? because everything you let into your space eventually gets into your mind. If you allow chaos outside, you'll have chaos inside. If you allow distractions outside, you'll carry them inside. If you let people interrupt you constantly, you'll never have the peace of mind to do deep work. And this isn't about isolating yourself from the world. It's about protecting your space so you can give your best to the world. So, how do you design an environment that pushes you forward instead of holding you back? Start by making what matters visible and removing the visible distractions. If your priority is hidden in a folder but your phone is glowing on your desk, what do you think you'll do? Put what matters right in front of you. Make your project visible. Keep your 3 priorities where you can see them, and remove the rest. Use your phone as a tool, not as decoration. If you don't need it for the task, it shouldn't be there. Not just on silent, not face down, gone in another room. Because as long as it's there, part of your brain will be waiting for it to buzz. Create spaces free of noise, not just sound, but visual and mental noise. A clean desk, an orderly room, a space where your mind can settle without having to process 1,000 distractions. Surround yourself with people whose habits you admire. This is more subtle but just as powerful. If you spend time around people who value focus, you'll start to value focus. If you spend time around scattered people, you'll scatter too. Not because you're weak, because we're social animals. We absorb the behaviors of those around us. Always prep your environment for the next day's work. Before you finish today, set up your space for tomorrow. Close all your tabs, clean your desk, leave only what you need visible, because if you walk in tomorrow and your space is ready, you'll begin. But if you have to clean, sort, and search before you can even start, you've already lost momentum. The friction killed your impulse before it even had a chance. James Clear puts it simply: environment is the catalyst for habits. Changing your environment is easier than changing your behavior. And when you change your environment, your behavior follows naturally, not as some heroic struggle, but as a byproduct. Because your brain will always choose the easiest option. And if the easiest option is the right one, you win. But if the easiest option is the wrong one, you lose. It doesn't matter how disciplined you are. The perfect environment doesn't exist. But an environment that forces you to move forward does. And when you adjust it, your mind stops fighting 1,000 distractions and finally starts moving without friction. That's discipline too, not gritting your teeth through temptation, but designing a life where temptation doesn't exist, where the right choice is the obvious one, where focus is the path of least resistance. That's where you win, not in a daily battle against yourself, but in the design of an environment that fights for you. Key number 8, commit out loud. Marcus Aurelius repeated in his meditations who he wanted to be, out loud, in writing, without hiding, because he understood something most people ignore. Making a promise only in your head is easy. Too easy. You can promise yourself anything and break it without consequence. But committing in front of the world is different. It forces you, it pushes you, it holds you up. And when you fail, you're not just failing yourself, you're failing in front of others, and that changes everything you've lived it. You promise yourself something. You're going to start working out. You're going to write every day. You're going to focus on your project. Then you break that promise. No drama, no witnesses, no consequences. Because no one knew, no one saw, no one held you accountable. So you promise it again, and you break it again. And little by little your word stops meaning anything. Not even to you. Epictetus would call this a lack of responsibility, a lack of integrity, a lack of spine. But if you say it, if you share it, if you make it part of your identity, everything changes. Because now there are witnesses. Now there are consequences. Now breaking that promise isn't just private failure, it's public incoherence. And most people will do anything to avoid that. Not out of vanity, but because humans have a deep need to be consistent with what we say. It's much easier to break a silent promise than to break one that others heard. Tom Bilyeu, creator of impact theory, says that when he publicly announced he would build that company, There was no turning back. External commitment forced him to deliver. Not because he had more motivation, but because he had said it out loud. And now his identity was tied to following through. That's exactly what the Stoics meant by coherence. Your word has to mean something. And if it only means something when no one hears it, then it means nothing at all. Committing out loud is like closing a door behind you. You can't retreat without it being noticed. You can't disappear without explanation. You can't fail without it mattering. And that creates pressure, positive pressure, the kind that pushes you to act when motivation is gone because motivation is weak. It comes and goes, but public commitment is strong. It's anchored to identity. And defending your identity is more powerful than any short burst of motivation. Picture Epictetus gathering his students and asking them, "Say what you'll do tomorrow." Not because he needed to hear it, but because they needed to say it in order to believe it. Saying something out loud makes it real. It pulls it out of your head and places it into the world. And once it's in the world, you can't ignore it. You can't pretend it doesn't matter. It matters, and everyone knows it. Robert Cialdini, a psychologist who spent decades studying influence, described this as the principle of consistency. Humans have a psychological need to act in line with what we've already said. When you make something public, your brain will do everything it can to maintain that coherence, because being inconsistent hurts more than the effort it takes to follow through. Katie Milkman, who researches goal behavior, found that sharing your goals massively increases follow-through, not because you suddenly have more discipline, but because now there's social pressure. And social pressure works. Let me paint two scenarios. First, you tell yourself, "I'll work out tomorrow." Tomorrow comes, you don't feel like it, it's cold, you're tired, so you skip it, and nothing happens. No one knows, no one asks, just you, and you forgive yourself easily. Second, you tell a friend, "I'll be at the gym at 7 tomorrow, wanna come?" Tomorrow comes, you still don't feel like it. It's still cold, you're still tired, but you go, because you said you would, because your friend is waiting, because breaking that promise has consequences. The difference isn't discipline, it's external commitment. Another example, in your head you say, "I'll start this project," weeks go by. You don't start, because no one knew you planned to. But if you say, "I'll submit this project by Friday," everything changes. Now there's a date, now there are witnesses, now there's pressure, and that pressure drives action. Simone Stolzoff, author of The Good Enough Job, explained something fascinating. Declaring boundaries publicly changes behavior. If you say at work, "I'll be offline from 8 to 10 to focus on this," you're much more likely to follow through, because you said it, because now your identity is on the line. Seneca would look you in the eye and ask bluntly, "How much is your word worth today?" Because if your word means nothing, then you mean nothing, not to others but to yourself, and living without a meaningful word is living without a spine. It's living in a state of constant intention without ever crossing into action. The Stoics hated that. Epictetus was ruthless about it. Don't say you're a philosopher, live like one. Don't say you'll change, change. Don't say you're disciplined, prove it. Words without actions are smoke, and smoke disappears without a trace. So how do you apply this without becoming someone who brags online just to get validation? Start by stating goals, not wishes. Don't say, "I want to do this." Say, "I'm going to do this." That difference is massive. One is intent, the other is commitment. Give dates, not vague ideas. Don't say, "Someday I'll start." Say, "Monday at 8, I start." Dates hold you accountable. Vague wishes let you off the hook. Ask someone to support you, not to judge, but to hold space for your commitment, to remind you that you said it, to give your word a witness. Write your commitments where you can see them, not buried in a phone note, visible somewhere you'll see them every day. Something that reminds you of what you said. It's easy to forget a promise you never look at, but if it's staring at you every morning, you can't ignore it. Jordan Harbinger, who spent years talking about relationships and personal growth, said something simple but powerful. Speaking your projects out loud forces you to move forward, because once you say it, it's no longer a dream, it's a responsibility. And responsibilities can't be avoided without cost. When you commit out loud, you stop living in intention and start living in action. Your word pushes you. Your identity supports you. And that's where real focus begins. Because focus isn't just about removing distractions. It's about building an identity so strong that breaking it hurts more than following through. It's about making your word matter so much that failure isn't an option. Not because you're perfect, but because you're consistent. And that kind of stoic consistency, where your words and your actions are one and the same, is the only thing that keeps you moving when everything else fades. Saying things out loud feels scary, doesn't it? But that's where the power is. When you say it, you can't hide anymore. Let me ask you something, like a friend would in a real conversation. What's something you've been wanting to start, but haven't said out loud because you're afraid you won't follow through? If you feel like sharing it, write it below. You never know who you might inspire. And if you want to leave just one line, write, "Today I say what I'll do and I'll do it. I'll do." Key number 9, automate what doesn't deserve your energy. Seneca said that life slips away in the small things, and he was right. We don't lose it in big dramatic decisions. We lose it in the countless little choices we repeat every single day without thinking. What to eat, what to wear, when to start, what to do first. The mind burns out before it ever reaches what really matters. That's why if you want to truly focus, you need to automate. Not because you're a robot, but because you're human. And humans have a limited supply of mental energy that runs out much faster than you think. Think about your mornings. You wake up. You decide whether or not to have breakfast, then what to have, then what to wear. You scroll through your messages aimlessly. You choose what task to start with. You debate whether to work out. You ask yourself when to begin, whether to check email first or later. See it. Before you've even started working on something important, you've made 20 decisions, and each one drained a bit of your mental energy. Marcus Aurelius would have cut that in half, because he understood something crucial. If you decide less, you do more. The mind is like a reservoir. Every decision takes a bit of water from it, and by the time you reach the moment that matters, creating something, working deeply, thinking clearly, there's barely anything left. You're exhausted before you even begin, not because you worked too much, but because you decided too much. Automating isn't about being rigid. It's not about being boring. It's about not wasting water on things that don't matter, so you still have it when it does. Ali Abdaal says one of the biggest changes in his productivity wasn't working more hours. It was automating what he could. Weekday meals, recording schedules, editing routines. Not out of obsession, not to be a control freak, but because he wanted to save his energy for what really mattered. For creating, for thinking, for doing work that required his best. And your best won't show up if you've spent all your energy deciding pointless things. Roy Baumeister, a psychologist who studied self-control for decades, found something sobering. Too many decisions severely weaken your willpower. He called it ego depletion. Every little choice you make chips away at your ability to stay disciplined. That's why people struggle more in the afternoons. That's why it's harder to focus after a day full of small decisions. It's not that you're weak. It's that you've burned all your fuel on things that never deserved it. Picture Epictetus starting his day. He wouldn't waste half an hour figuring out what to do first. He wouldn't check messages at random. He wouldn't improvise every morning. He'd have a simple ritual. Repeat what already works to free his mind for what truly matters. Because the Stoics understood something we've forgotten. The mind needs structure, not as a prison, but as a scaffold. Something that holds you up so you can build high. B.J. Fogg, a behavioral design expert, puts it this way: automatic habits work because they remove friction. You don't have to choose, you just act. And when you don't have to choose, your energy stays intact for what actually needs it. James Clear talks about using triggers to automate habits. After this, I always do that. Not because you decide it each time, but because you decided once and now you just follow through. Dr. Jason Selk, a high-performance psychologist for elite athletes, uses predictable routines to protect mental energy because athletes can't show up to competition mentally drained by trivial choices. They need full energy for the critical moment. Let me paint you something you probably know well. You start your day feeling overwhelmed because your morning is packed with tiny decisions. You spend 20 minutes picking an outfit, then deciding on breakfast, then which playlist to play, then which task to start, then whether or not to work out. Each decision drains you, dulls you, wears you down before you even begin. Another scenario. You want to work out, but every day you debate whether to go. And that debate is a war. Motivation versus laziness, willpower versus fatigue. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But if you work out at 7 a.m. every day no matter what, there's no battle, no debate. It's already decided. All that's left is to follow through. Marcus Aurelius had reflection rituals in the morning and at night. They didn't change. He didn't improvise. These were mental automations that helped prepare his mind for the day and shut it down at night. Seneca championed a structured life. The repetition of useful habits, because he knew that structure frees you. It doesn't imprison you. It frees your mind from having to reinvent everything every single day. Epictetus taught that you should prepare your mind before you act. That's emotional automation, knowing how you'll respond before the stimulus shows up, not reacting. Acting on what you already decided. My turning point came when I decided my mornings would always be the same. Water, coffee, 10 minutes of mental review, write, work. No reinventing the day, no guessing what to do first. Suddenly, everything flowed. And the funny thing, I felt more free, not less. Because freedom isn't having 1,000 choices every morning. Freedom is not having to waste energy on small decisions so you can use it on the big ones, the ones that matter, the ones that actually build something real. So how do you apply this without turning into some rigid robot living on autopilot with no life? Start by automating your mornings. Decide once what your ideal morning looks like and repeat it. Same breakfast, same start time, same ritual. Not because it's magic, but because it removes friction. Automate your weekday meals, not all of them, just the ones that don't matter. Plan your meals on Sunday, one decision, not 21. Automate your work hours. Don't choose every day when to begin. Start at the same time. Keep the same block. Your brain will adjust. It'll prepare. It'll know what to expect. Automate shutdown rituals. Something that signals to your brain. It's done. You can let go. Don't make it up every night. Create a closing routine. It can be simple. Write 3 lines, close all tabs, walk for 10 minutes. Whatever works, but always the same. Avoid repetitive decisions that drain you. Anything you do more than 3 times a week should be automated. Clothes picked out the night before, desk cleaned before ending the day. Tasks for tomorrow planned before shutting down today. Anything you can decide once and execute later, do it. Have templates for what you repeat. Standard email replies, work structures, formats. Whatever you do regularly shouldn't start from scratch every time. Cut friction wherever you can. Because every friction point is a chance to quit. And if you automate, the friction disappears. There's no moment where you can negotiate with yourself. There's only action. Epictetus would have smiled seeing how much you complicate starting your day. He knew that clarity comes before action, that preparing your mind and space is part of the work, not something separate. And automation is exactly that. Preparing in a way that when it's time to act, nothing stands in your way, nothing to decide, nothing to debate. Just forward motion. Automation is pure Stoicism, removing what gets in the way so you can focus on what matters. It's not about being rigid, it's about being wise with your energy. It's understanding that your decision-making power is limited, that your willpower runs out, that your mental energy is your most precious resource, and every small decision you make is stealing from your ability to do something great. Because while you're deciding what to have for breakfast, someone else is already deep into what matters. And not because they're more disciplined, but because they automated the trivial to focus on the essential. Key number 10. Make friends with uncomfortable effort. Epictetus once said something brutal. Do you want to improve? Then get ready to be called a fool. In other words, prepare to be uncomfortable, to do things you don't know how to do, to fail in front of others, to feel clumsy. Because progress doesn't live where you feel safe. It lives exactly where discomfort begins, and most people run from that place their entire lives. That's why they never truly move forward. You notice it when something hard shows up and your first instinct is to escape. You open social media, get up, check your email, postpone, invent an urgent excuse. Anything to avoid staying in that discomfort. Discomfort scares you. It makes you nervous, it makes you doubt. But that's exactly where focus is born. Right there. In the moment your body begs you to flee and you choose to stay, that's the battle. And most people lose before it even begins. A muscle grows when it's pushed beyond comfort. So does discipline. If you don't embrace discomfort, you'll never develop mental strength. It's impossible. The Stoics knew it. Virtue is born from effort, not ease. You can't build something valuable by only doing what's easy. Because the easy won't transform you. It keeps you exactly the same, and staying the same in a changing world is falling behind. Picture Marcus Aurelius writing late into a freezing night. Tired, drained, doubting whether it made sense to keep writing, but he wrote anyway. Not because he felt like it, because he knew discomfort was part of the path. He knew that if he only worked when he felt inspired, he'd never create anything meaningful. Because what matters always requires pushing when you don't want to. It always requires staying when everything inside you wants to quit. It always demands staying uncomfortable just a little longer. David Perel says something brilliant. Progress begins when you give yourself permission to be bad at the beginning. The Stoics would have applauded that, because they understood that everything worthwhile begins in incompetence. It starts awkward. It starts messy, it starts feeling like you don't know what you're doing, and most people quit right there, because they can't stand feeling unskilled. They'd rather not try than try and feel foolish. But those who move forward are the ones who befriend that feeling, the ones who say, it's okay to feel like this. This is part of the process. This is what growth feels like. Kelly McGonigal, a psychologist who spent years studying effort, discovered something fascinating. Effort produces dopamine and motivation, not before the effort, but during it. When you push through discomfort, your brain rewards you. Not because it feels good in the moment, but because it knows you're making progress. Andrew Huberman explains this from a neuroscience angle. Discomfort activates your brain's motor systems. When you face something hard, your brain wakes up. It gets alert. It prepares for action, but only if you stay. If you flee, you never access that power. Julian Smith wrote a book called The Flinch. The flinch is that automatic pullback when something makes you uncomfortable. That survival instinct telling you, step away from what hurts. And that's fine for staying alive, but terrible for growing. Because growth means walking straight into what scares you, what challenges you, what makes you hesitate. The Stoics trained that muscle constantly. Seneca talked about exposing yourself voluntarily to hardship, not because they were masochists, because they knew that if you only live in comfort, real difficulty will crush you when it finally shows up. Let me paint you something you've surely lived. You need to start your hardest task of the day, you know it. It's right there. But instead of starting, you open social media, just for a second, then email, then something irrelevant. Suddenly half an hour's gone and you haven't started. Not because you're lazy, but because you fled from discomfort. Another example, you sit down to work on something big. Suddenly something urgent appears. A call, a message, a task that suddenly seems critical but it's not urgent. It's your brain inventing a way to avoid the discomfort of real work. Or this one. You know waking up early would help you. But when the alarm rings, your body fights back. Your mind starts negotiating, just 5 more minutes, it's cold. I'm tired, I'll start tomorrow, and you lose. Not because you lack discipline, but because you haven't made discomfort your friend. You chose short-term comfort over long-term growth, and immediate comfort always wins, unless you train the opposite. Epictetus taught something clear. Discomfort is training, not punishment, not something to avoid. It's the tool, the gym for your mind. Every time you stay with discomfort, you get stronger. Every time you push when you don't feel like it, you train your focus. Because focus isn't doing what you love, that's easy. Focus is doing what matters, even when you don't love it, even when your body wants to run, even when every fiber of you says, stop. Marcus Aurelius forced himself to act when he didn't want to. He wrote something that should be engraved in the mind of anyone seeking discipline. Do what your nature requires, not what your comfort demands. Your nature, as a human being, is to grow, to move forward, to build. But comfort whispers, stay still, don't risk it, don't struggle. And if you listen to comfort long enough, you start dying slowly. Not physically, but mentally, spiritually, because you abandon the person you could become. So how do you become friends with uncomfortable effort without turning into someone who suffers for the sake of it? Start without needing to feel ready. Don't wait for motivation, it won't come. Begin uncomfortable, begin unwilling, begin knowing the first minutes will be a fight and do it anyway. Expose yourself to voluntary discomfort daily. It can be small. A cold shower, waking up early, doing the hard task first, training when it's cold. Anything your body wants to avoid and you choose to do. Stay with the task 30 seconds longer when you want to quit. That's the critical point, when you think you can't keep going. When your brain begs you to stop, stay just 30 more seconds. That's where you grow, that's where your focus expands. Reframe discomfort as a sign of growth, not as your enemy, but as your guide. When discomfort shows up, it doesn't mean something's wrong. It means something's growing. Your mind, your discipline, your ability to do hard things. Ness Labs talks about voluntary exposure to effort as a tool for focus, because when you train your tolerance to discomfort, everything else becomes easier. Not because the world changes, because you're stronger, and a stronger person doesn't need things to be easy to move forward. They move forward anyway. Uncomfortable but moving. Scared but acting, doubtful but doing. Discomfort isn't your enemy, it's a doorway. The Stoics walked toward it because they knew what lived behind it. Strength, clarity, real discipline. Not the discipline of Instagram, the discipline that holds you up when everything else fails. When motivation's gone, when no one's watching, when you could quit without consequence. That discipline is born in discomfort. And if you keep running from discomfort, you're running from your best self. Because that version of you doesn't live in ease. It lives exactly where it's hardest to reach. And getting there isn't optional if you truly want to focus. It's the path. And listen, if all this is stirring something in you because deep down you know you've been distracting yourself from who you could become, then when the suggestion pops up on screen, give it a look. It's going exactly in the same direction. It won't speak softly, but it will help you take the next step. Key number 11. If you don't measure it, you lose it. Marcus Aurelius reviewed his days every night, not because he doubted himself, not because he was insecure, but because he understood something most people ignore. What you don't review, you repeat, and you do a lot. You move, you make an effort, you work hard. But let me ask you something honestly. Do you truly know what's moving you forward and what's holding you back? Because most people have no idea. They work for years without knowing if they're advancing or just walking in circles. Picture this. You work all day. You run around. You do 1,000 tasks. You answer messages. You deal with emergencies. You help others. You feel busy. You feel tired. But at the end of the month, you look back and see no progress. You're no closer to your goal. You didn't move forward on what really matters. You feel exhausted but not fulfilled. Sound familiar? You're not failing in effort, you're failing in measurement. Because without measuring, there's no direction. And without direction, all effort becomes noise. An archer without a target can shoot all day and never improve. He can work hard, sweat, feel active, but he'll never know if he's getting better. You can work non-stop, but if you don't measure anything, you won't know whether you're hitting the target or missing it more each day. The Stoics placed their target on virtue, on living according to principle, and they evaluated every arrow, every action, every day, because what you don't measure gets distorted, diluted, lost. Imagine Seneca reflecting on his day as night falls. He writes down the good, the bad, what he could have done better. It's not guilt, it's not punishment. It's clarity. Because he knew that a thoughtful life is better than an improvised one. That reviewing your actions helps you adjust, improve, move forward. But if you don't review, you just repeat. The same mistakes, the same patterns, the same mediocre outcomes. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your mind is terrible at evaluating long-term progress. Your memory lies. It makes you think you worked more than you did. It forgets the wasted days. It convinces you you're moving forward when you're stuck. That's why you need data. Not to become obsessive, but to see reality. Because reality without measurement is just perception. And perception lies. Austin Kleon, a creator who spent years talking about sustainable creativity, says he truly started progressing when he began tracking his work, not to obsess, just to realize he was making progress. Because when you don't measure, all you remember are the bad days, the failures, the days you did nothing. But when you track, you see the full picture. You see you moved forward more than you thought, or that you didn't move at all and need to change. Both are valuable. Both give you clarity. Dr. Phil Stutz, a therapist who worked with elite performers for decades, talks about the cycle: action, review, adjustment. You can't adjust what you don't review, and you can't review what you don't measure. And if you don't adjust, you'll repeat the same mistakes until they consume you. Gretchen Rubin, who studied habits for years, found something simple but powerful. Tracking habits massively increases consistency, not because you magically become more disciplined, but because now you can see if you're following through, and seeing creates accountability. Tracking reinforces identity. When you measure something, you tell your brain, this matters. This is part of who I am, and your brain listens. It begins to prioritize it. It begins to protect it. Ellen Langer, a Harvard psychologist, talks about mindful awareness, how tracking behavior gives you control. Because you can't control what you don't observe, and you can't observe what you don't measure. Let me paint something you probably recognize. Someone swears they're exhausted because they work so much. They're always busy, always running. But when they track their real hours of deep work, it's two focused hours in a 10-hour day. The rest? Noise, interruptions, distractions, tasks that feel like work but aren't. They weren't failing in capability. They were failing in accuracy because they thought being busy was the same as making progress. And it's not. Another example, someone trying to lose weight. They say they're trying, they eat healthy, they move, but they don't track meals. They don't track steps. They don't track sleep. So how can they know if they're really progressing or just hoping they are? They can't. They're relying on perception, and perception lies when there's no data to correct it. Another case, someone wants to write a book. They write when they feel inspired. They sit down when they have time, but they don't track words. They don't track writing days. So when months pass and there's no progress, they feel frustrated. They feel incapable. But the problem isn't capability. It's that they never knew how much they were actually doing. Marcus Aurelius wouldn't have trusted his memory to tell him whether he was a better person that day. He wrote it down, measured it, watched it. Because he knew an untracked mind is a directionless mind. You can have the best intentions in the world, but without measurement, those intentions dissolve into the noise of daily life. Epictetus taught that progress must be seen with honesty, not self-deception, not excuses, with data, with facts, with clear evidence of growth or stagnation. So how do you apply this without turning into someone who tracks every breath? Start by tracking what matters, not everything, just the essentials: deep work hours, training, study, sleep. The things that truly move your life forward. Measure weekly, not daily. Because a single day lies. A bad day means nothing. A bad week tells you something. You can have a terrible Monday and still have a great week. But only if you track the full picture. Keep a clarity notebook, not an emotional journal. A notebook where you write down small wins. What you did today that brought you closer to your goal. It could be one line, one sentence, but something concrete, something measurable. Because when you look back and see 30 days of tiny wins, you realize you did move forward, that it wasn't just in your head, that it was real. At night, review with brutal honesty. Don't lie, don't make excuses. Ask yourself, did I move forward or just stay busy? Did I work on what matters or on what's urgent? Am I closer to my goal or exactly where I was? Tracking isn't about control, it's about clarity. It's the difference between navigating with a compass or blindly hoping to end up somewhere meaningful. You can work your heart out. You can grind for years. But without direction, you lose those years. You spend them. You waste them. And then you wonder why you didn't arrive. It wasn't a lack of effort. It was a lack of measurement. It was mistaking motion for progress, activity for results. What you don't measure gets distorted. It dissolves in your memory like it never happened. But what you track grows, because when you track something, you give it attention, and what gets your attention grows, always. And if you want to regain your focus, your discipline, your clarity, it starts with knowing exactly where you are and where you're going, because without that, everything else is just hope. And hope without measurement is just noise disguised as intention. And even so, there's something almost everyone overlooks. Something small but powerful enough to change the way you move forward. Let's take a look. Key number 12. Start even if you're not ready. Epictetus was clear, don't wait until you're ready to act, because you never really will be. Action prepares you, not waiting. And you know this, you've lived it. How many times have you said, when I'm ready? When I have more time, when I know more. When it's the perfect moment. And that day never comes. Never. Because it doesn't exist. The perfect moment is a lie you tell yourself to avoid facing the fear of starting. How many times have you wanted to begin something? A habit, a project, a change. And you delayed it because it wasn't the right time. Because you didn't have everything you needed, because you didn't know enough. Because you wanted to do it right from the start. The uncomfortable truth is this: the perfect moment doesn't exist. The moment happens when you decide to create momentum, when you stop waiting for ideal conditions and begin with what you've got. A plane doesn't take off when everything is perfect, it takes off because it has to. And it adjusts in the air. It corrects course while flying. It solves problems in motion. Life works the same way. The Stoics acted without waiting for guarantees, without waiting for safety, without needing everything perfectly aligned. Because they knew perfection is the enemy of progress. Waiting to be ready is just another way of never starting. Picture Marcus Aurelius writing another entry in his Meditations. He wasn't feeling inspired. He wasn't well rested. He wasn't in the perfect mood. But he wrote anyway. Because he understood something essential. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. You don't wait for clarity to act. You act and clarity appears. While you wait, there's only fog. But when you move, the fog clears. The path reveals itself. The answers come. But only if you start. Ali Spagnola launched her Power Hour project without knowing how to shoot, edit, or produce well. She learned by doing. Her success came because she started before she felt ready. If she'd waited, she'd still be waiting, still planning, still preparing, and she would have created nothing. Eternal preparation is procrastination dressed up as responsibility. It's fear disguised as caution. Here's a truth no one wants to hear. Waiting for motivation or perfection is self-deception. It's a trap. Because motivation doesn't come before action. It comes after, when you're already in motion. When you've already done something, no matter how small. Andrew Huberman explains this through neuroscience. Action generates dopamine that makes you want to act again. not the other way around. You don't wait for dopamine to get started. You start, and dopamine follows. The brain rewards movement, not planning. Oliver Burkeman, author of 4,000 Weeks, says something powerful. You'll never feel certain before you begin. Never. Because certainty doesn't come before action. It comes after you've acted again and again. After you've failed. After you've learned. After you've adjusted. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll never begin, because the confidence you're seeking only lives on the other side of starting, and the only way to reach it is to begin uncertain. John Acuff says something that sounds contradictory but is deeply true. Starting badly is the only way to start for real, because if you only start when you can do it well, you'll never start. You won't know how to do it well until you've done it badly a few times. Learning doesn't come from theory. It comes from messy practice, from mistakes, from doing something awful and then improving. Tiago 40 puts it simply, version 1 will always be bad, but necessary, because without version 1 there is no version 2, and without version 2, you never reach the version 10 that actually works. Let me show you something you've probably lived. You want to start studying something, but first you research the perfect method. Then you find the best books, then the best apps, then the ideal time of day. Weeks pass, months, and you haven't started, because you were preparing to start instead of starting. Another case, you want to start a business, but first you need the perfect plan, the perfect logo, the perfect website, the perfect strategy. And while you're perfecting all of that, someone else starts with a mediocre plan and is already learning, already adjusting, already moving forward. Or imagine you want to work out, but first you buy gym clothes, then the perfect app, then the accessories, then you research routines, and when you finally have everything, you have no energy, no time. You've lost the spark because you confused preparing with doing. And preparing can last forever if you let it. There's always something else to learn, something else to buy, something else to plan. But none of it gets you closer to your goal like starting badly today. Seneca said it 2,000 years ago, and it's still true today. While we delay, life passes. Every day you wait to be ready is a day you lose. Every week you plan without acting is a week someone else uses to move forward. And not because they're better, because they started. Because they chose imperfect action over eternal preparation. Marcus Aurelius would have zero patience for your "I'm not ready" excuse. He'd say, act right now, with what you have, however you can. But act. So how do you break this pattern without becoming someone who starts everything but finishes nothing? Do one tiny action today. Not the whole project. Just a small step. If you want to write a book, write 1 paragraph. If you want to train, do 10 push-ups. If you want to create something, make the worst version possible. But do something. Because that small action breaks inertia. And breaking inertia matters more than doing it perfectly. Build as you go. Don't wait for the full plan. Start with step 1. Step 2 will appear once step 1 is done. But only if you start. Don't fix before you create. Create first, then fix. Because you can't fix what doesn't exist. And if you spend all your time editing in your head, you'll never create anything real. Kill the idea of the ideal start. It doesn't exist. The best time to begin was yesterday. The second best is now. Start with the simplest part, not the shiniest, because the simple part gets you moving. And movement is the only thing that creates progress. Focus is born from movement. Clarity comes from action. Discipline starts with beginning. Don't wait to be ready. Being ready is a result of starting, not a prerequisite. Epictetus acted immediately, guided by intention. He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He acted with what he had, and adjusted, improved, learned, but always in motion, never paralyzed by the illusion of the perfect moment. Don't wait to be ready. Start. Start badly. Start uncomfortable. Start uncertain. Start afraid. But start, and let the path prepare you. Because real preparation doesn't come from books, it comes from action, from failing, from adjusting, from trying again. That's the only preparation that matters, and it only becomes available once you've begun. So stop waiting, stop planning, stop preparing to be ready, and begin right now with what you have, however you can, because that's the only way to reclaim your focus by moving, acting, building, even when you're not ready, especially when you're not ready. By now, you've probably realized it yourself. Focus isn't about hacks, brute force, or being some flawless person. It's about small adjustments. It's about reclaiming your space, training your mind, and returning to the task over and over again. And maybe today, for the first time in a long time, you saw clearly what's actually been holding you back. If you hold on to that, even just one idea, you've already taken a huge step. And if you've made it this far, write in the comments, "Today I take back control."